All right, let's talk about the Washington football team for a second. They've won 4 straight football games. You could argue the competition. Okay, the Panthers and the Seahawks aren't exactly spectacular, but the Seahawks did just beat San Francisco. And the other two teams they beat, the Raiders and the Buccaneers, one of those is a playoff contender, the other is a championship contender and reigning champions. So clearly they're doing something right. What is that something? Well, I've actually noticed a very interesting shift, really starting with that Buccaneers game, which had started this whole win streak that they've done. To go back to that game, what Tampa Bay has struggled with this season has been, cover two defenses, two safety defenses. So Washington, they did the smart thing and they changed what they typically do, which is more of a cover three zone, which is just a single safety deep. And they had success. They were able to slow down Brady and the Buccaneers offense. The offense still got some stuff going, but only got 19 points. And an element of that was Washington held onto the ball for a while. But you picked up the win. And what I think some teams would do is say, okay, well, we use the defense that beats them. Cool. Let's go back to what we're good at. Washington kind of said, maybe we should stick with that for a bit, see how that goes, and they haven't lost since. So it's not exactly only running cover two zone, but that's a big part of it. And, the logic behind cover two zone, of course, is you're not going to get big chunk plays. It's harder to get a big chunk play. You have to run, 12 play drives to get the ball into the end zone. And, you do that, and eventually, someone's going to screw up. Now, there's ways to beat cover two zone. One of the biggest ways to beat cover two zone is by running the football, but Washington's kind of uniquely built where they can stop the run. And let's get into, I think there's a play that really can kind of show not just how they can stop the run, but also what they can do schematically to stop the run. It's right here where what they're doing is, you see how they're showing as though they have two safety deep. I'm going to circle one. He's the closest who can get into the running game. And a lot of what Washington's doing is, yes, they'll show cover two, but they're not exclusively playing two safety deep coverages. Because again, part of what put them into trouble early on this season was opposing teams just knew what they were doing. They know, okay, you're going to run cover three zone. Well, I can game plan around cover three zone, so it's not that difficult to do when you know what's coming. But because of this sort of a bit of a disguise where it's actually a safety that I've circled is going to crash down, while typically this would be a great time to run the ball because everyone else is getting blocked here, the closest unblocked man is actually a lot closer than Las Vegas realizes. Watch as he's going to run in right here, and he's actually going to make a very quick tackle, largely because of the little disguise right there. I think that's just essential, quite frankly. I think that's a huge deal in terms of what Washington is trying to accomplish. Because since you're still playing a lot of cover two and a lot of two safety deep coverages, so either cover two or cover four, teams aren't really going to game plan around trying to get the ball down the field, but you can still have that player come in. And listen, if a team's trying to methodically move down the field, let's say there's a 2nd down and 5, you do this, and now it's a 3rd down and 5. Well, now they have to convert there, and you can kind of play whatever coverage you want. Like, this is another example of what I'm talking about. So again, you see how it's set up as though it's going to be a cover 2 zone. The Raiders have a concept that's designed to beat zone coverage. 2 receivers run deep, your halfback runs underneath, Carr hits the halfback, and since, Washington players have been pushed back because of this, now the halfback will have some room to run. Won't get you a ton of yards, but should get you some. However, this is not, in fact, a cover 2 zone. This is a disguise. This is what Washington is actually running. It's a cover 3 zone blitz right here. And in a vacuum, this shouldn't make things that much more difficult to get some yards if you're the Raiders. This shouldn't be that big of a deal. But watch that Washington player right here. Watch what he's going to do. Because of the disguise, he steps up, and now at this point, he can read where this play is going. So here, typically, he would be a lot further back covering another Raider, but because of this, he now sees exactly where the ball is, so he can, his momentum is already taking him in that direction. He runs up, he makes the tackle, which, yeah, that's another aspect. You have to make the tackle, but they did there. So again, it's these little disguises where, okay, could you argue that's getting a little bit lucky of the concept just happened to get a player in the right position? Yeah, you could make that argument. That's a fair argument to make. But the flip side is, well, you're going to get lucky when you constantly disguise and don't make it obvious what you're actually doing. then teams are going to try and game plan around what they think you're going to do, and sometimes they're going to guess wrong. And especially when you have a lot of two safety deep coverages, you're forcing them to run a lot of plays. Eventually, they are going to guess wrong on specific drives. It's going to be hard to score points. There's also stuff like this where here's the flip side of having a lot of cover two zone is, so you have two safeties deep, and this time they're staying deep. So for Las Vegas, you see that everyone over the middle of the field is accounted for right here. There isn't a single unblocked Washington player. So what do you do if you're Washington? How do you avoid this? Well, usually you just give up some yards until the safety can come up and make a play, but all you need is either one of your defensive linemen to make a play or one of their offensive linemen to make a mistake, and you're going to get a stop. Right there, I've circled Colton Miller. He's going to just do something odd. I'm not exactly sure what he's doing here because his assignment is to block 92, finish off the double team, and then get up to block a linebacker. But he's going to kind of, I think, I'm not exactly sure why he does this. Look, he just completely ignores who should have blocked, 55, who ends up going and making the tackle. So good job by Washington. But this is kind of, again, if you have to run a lot of plays, you're going to start to make mistakes. Someone's going to screw up, or just someone on Washington's going to make a good defensive play. That obviously happened as well. So you do this kind of stuff. This is how you can just make your defense a lot better, and it's really working well for Washington so far. Now, should talk about something like this. It's not like there aren't ways to beat this defense. Like, that's a very important thing to talk about. And it's also not like there aren't ways to get explosive plays down the field. On this play, what's going to happen is it is zone coverage. You have two receivers to the offense's left who are running deeper routes, and you have two receivers who are going to kind of get over, and again, similar to that last concept where he's trying to push players back, and then you have someone else run underneath them. Watch how once this play begins, you're going to notice that Carr, quite frankly, Deshaun Jackson is as open as it gets in the NFL, but Carr's just already gotten off that read way too quickly and looking to the halfback. So, you get away with one right here, but there still are ways to beat this coverage. And once teams realize, okay, there is a lot of cover two zone, let's game plan around that. The flip side is, yes, you're going to guess wrong sometimes. You're going to guess right sometimes as well, and it's just unfortunate for the Raiders here that Carr never saw Jackson for whatever reason. But I do think that is a very notable thing to talk about as well. But again, that's going to happen, and every defense can get beat. This is just the way that your defense can get beat. So yeah, listen, it's crazy stuff. I do feel like in that game, we saw, in that Tampa Bay game, we did see a significant shift. Rivera, traditionally loves his cover three zone. And since that game, they've given up just 17.5 points per game. Before that, they were giving up 28.4 points per game. So we're having over a 10-point per game drop. Still a bit of a small sample size in 4 games, but also, you look at who they've played. They've gone up against Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, and Derek Carr, and Cam Newton. But 3 out of those 4 quarterbacks are guys who, at some point, at least before this season or during this season, were strong MVP candidates. Russell Wilson's injury got rid of that. But Carr and Tom Brady, Brady's the front runner, and Carr is still an MVP candidate. So the fact that they were able to shut all of those teams down, and weirdly, Carolina is the team that scored the most points against them, that kind of just goes to show Washington's good, and Washington's continuing to have some success. And also, the Carolina game was a little bit odd just because that was a little bit different. It's Cam Newton, so that their scheme on that one maybe shouldn't entirely be included here, but it's still a fascinating situation. So yeah, that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on all this? Always love hearing from you, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.